entertaining podcasts I listen to. I don't listen to many. That one, Francine, is a different point of view. It's a female point of view, but someone who's been through the hardcore wars.
Yes.
So what Francine has to say to me matters and is important. And there are two guys up in New York, Monte and the Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
I find them hugely entertaining. I find them fun to listen to. But those three are the only three podcasts really other than, the PW Insider stuff that I listen to at all.
Big Ron Shaw here, the Earl of Upsets, telling you to watch my friends, Monte and the Pharaoh, on Long Island's #1 wrestling podcast show, and soon to be the world's #1 wrestling podcast show. That is going to be a big upset.
The Monte and the Pharaoh Show is brought to you by...
Because wine is your second favorite 4-letter word. California wine, New York attitude. Good fucking wine.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte the Pharaoh. Only seen here out of Mike Monte's room, Jimmy Farrow's room, because we're still working on getting that studio fixed. But we've got a great superstar, Mr. Bill Anderson. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Hi, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
It is an honor to have a legend like yourself, sir. Thank you again. Let's have a little fun. What do you think, Bill?
Yes, sir. Let's go for it.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, for those folks at home who don't realize it, your debut, my Lord, 1974, your first opponent is one of our childhood favorites there, Mikey, Playboy Buddy Rose. Did you at that point have any idea what on earth you're getting into? I mean, my God, what a debut, huh?
Well, actually, I have to correct you, and I'm very sorry to do that, gentlemen. It was not that Playboy Buddy Rose. There was another guy actually wrestling as Playboy Buddy Rose before him.
Okay.
He was wrestling as Paul Pershman at that time.
Oh.
And I wrestled an Arizona guy that was wrestling as Playboy Buddy Rose, who had the name before him, honest to God.
Isn't that copyright infringement? Isn't that copyright infringement, though?
The nerve.
The nerve, yeah. Paul Pershman copied the other guy. No, it's just a coincidence that happens. You know the business.
Was he?
By the way, that's my fault, right? I'm just a fan.
Hey, it's a very innocent mistake.
I had no idea it was two Playboy Buddy Roses.
Who would have thought? And coincidentally, that guy that wrestled as Playboy Buddy Rose went on to wrestle right after that as Buddy Rogers Jr., believe it or not. I mean, you talk about his gimmick infringement, but that's the way the business was, especially in the 70s, without the internet, nobody knew, from one territory to another where somebody's at. It was just different back then. But this guy that I wrestled, his real name, I believe, was Dick Rose. And he just chose the name Buddy for whatever reason. But one hell of a wrestler.
Now, I got to ask you, Bill, how do you decide to become a professional wrestler? Again, for someone like myself, look, first of all, me and Jimmy are in awe of guys like yourself, but I just can't imagine going up to my father and mother and being like, hey guys, I think I'm going to be a pro wrestler. You know what I mean?
Well, I took a lot of heat from my dad for that. Let me tell you, my mom was all for it, but let me explain. 1971, I was living, excuse me, living in California, and I saw on TV the famous angle between John Tolos and Freddie Blassie, where Tolos threw the powder into Blassie's eyes and blinded him. And in reality, Blassie went on to wrestle in Japan for a while to create this big feud in LA, which was a major territory back then at the Olympic Auditorium for Mike LaBelle. So I saw that on TV, and I was just flipping channels one day and came across it. And I was 15 years old, and it inspired me. From the time I was 15, I said, I want to be a pro wrestler. And ironically, let's see, that was in 71. In 84, so 13 years later, I wrestled John Tolos in the Olympic Auditorium myself, and fulfilled that fantasy that I wanted to do and become a wrestler. And there was a lot that happened in between, but jumping ahead, I fulfilled the fantasy of not only wrestling, but wrestling my hero, bad guy, John Tolos, the Golden Greek.
Well, Bill, straighten me out on this, dude, because I got to be honest with you, okay? And please don't take this against me. I'm just not a Tolos guy. I never got him. I never understood people like enamor him like you are, right? What was so special about John Tolos?
Well, John was different from a lot of heels. John would just go on TV and just he had a way of promoting himself that was maybe different than a lot of heels did. And John just said, I'm the greatest. You spell wrestling TOLOS. I'm the greatest wrestler there is. And you come down to the Olympic on Friday night or on Wednesday night, and you'll see me kick some butt. And he did. And it was just a real straightforward, easy promo that he did. He didn't cut himself with glass like a Moondog Lonnie Main or Roddy Piper breaking beer bottles over his head in Portland or this or that or a number of other ways. John just did a straightforward, I'm a hell of a great wrestler. My brother's a great wrestler. And you come down and you can watch me, kick some serious butt on Friday. And he was very anti-Mexican, which was the big thing at that time, especially Los Angeles. So he was wrestling guys like Mil Mascaras, Ray Mendoza, El Solitario, and all these different characters down there in LA. So it was a big thing for him, and he was a major star.
I don't know how this is going to sound because, Mike and I go back and forth all the time. I was lucky enough to catch a lot of the Olympic auditorium stuff on UHF on a Spanish station up here in New York. And honestly, John Tolos, to me as a young kid watching John Tolos had one amazing trait about himself that somehow came across. He was evil. There was something evil about him. It was, I don't know if you know the actor John Saxon, but it's almost as if he kind of looked like him, except the evil, twisted version without even having to say much. It was his face. There was
Many people have compared him to John Saxon. You are correct.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And one of my best friends in New York, he always says Tolos looked like Saxon.
Yeah, he was evil.
You're right. John was just a heel at heart.
Yeah.
But what was funny was, away from the ring, Tolos was the sweetest guy you could ever talk to and the nicest man you could ever talk to, cordial, polite, a gentleman. He was just a fantastic guy. And he was one of the few guys that when he passed away, and I talked to him not long before he passed away from several heart attacks he had and strokes. And I shed buckets of tears for that man. Only a few guys have I ever done that, and Tolos was one of them. And it was because how sweet of a guy he was and how nice of a man he was away from the ring. Unlike the most people see the baby faces as always the good guys and always everywhere. I look at it, and I was both in the business. I worked as a heel and a baby my whole career. for around the business for 50 years, and I'm telling you, the baby faces are not the nicest guys in the business. It's the heels. And it goes without saying. I mean, and a lot of people will agree with me on this that know a lot of heels. The heels were truly the nicest guys in the business. And, and there's exceptions. Hulk Hogan, always a stand-up guy, cool guy to be around. Andre the Giant was another guy, that I wrestled a lot. Irish Mickey Doyle. There's some great workers out there that were just always baby faces that treated me really great. But
the Tolos. I'm sorry, Bill. The Tolos Blassie feud. Do you get frustrated that I feel like it's getting lost in the sands of time because of the time period that it took place in and the territory days? And I feel like almost like a feud like that, which is legendary. It is. But do you feel like it's getting a little buried in the sands of time with the way things are
it was every territory had their major feuds. Portland had, maybe Roddy Piper against, I don't know, the Grappler, or, Jerry Lawler against Andy Kaufman, and the Sheik and Bobo Brazil in Detroit's the most classic that I saw many times because I'm from Detroit. I was born and raised there, and I lived there for several years. And I used to go back in the summer months in the 70s when I was in high school and visit my father back there. My parents were divorced. So I would go to Cobo Arena, and watch the Sheik and Bobo. What a great feud that was. Sheik was one of the greatest heels of all time, which is a different kind of evil versus John Tolos. Obviously, the Sheik being a foreigner, even though he served in the U.S. Army, he was a foreigner and an evil doer, and the pointed-toed boots, which automatically made him a bad guy. And it was just different. But yeah, I agree with you. A lot of the territory days, people are forgetting more and more. I have friends all the time that say, back when I was a kid in the old days of wrestling, when Stone Cold was wrestling this guy, and I was like, Stone Cold is not the old days of wrestling, brother. Let me tell you, Tony Bourne is the old days of wrestling, or Sweet Hansen, or those Johnny Rods, or those kind of guys, brother. Don't give me Stone Cold and The Rock. That's not the old days of wrestling. And thank God I came up right at the tail end in the 70s of the old days. I mean, through the 70s. I worked for Jerry Jarrett and Nick Goulas in 1975. I worked as Bill Colt, a partner of Chris Colt, and Mike Boyette down there in 75. I was working the territory circuit for a bit of my career. I got to work for Dick the Bruiser out of Indianapolis. I worked a lot of shows for him in Hammond, Indiana, or Springfield, Illinois in 81. And I was working for Mike LaBelle in his territory in 82 before he sold out to Vince in 83. And I was part of Vince's shows on the expansion to California in March of 83. I was working all of Vince's shows as a preliminary guy, the first few matches, working with Orndorff or the Great Goliath or Black Gordman or Mickey Doyle or John Tolos, or different characters, different guys in the undercard for Vince through those first few months of him expanding in 83. And which did away with the territories because Vince rated top talent from all the promotions, Look what he did to Bill Watts. Bill Watts had one of the hottest promotions in the world in the mid 80s. And Vince took Ted DiBiase, Jim Duggan, Junkyard Dog, One Man Gang, picked them off one at a time, Jim Ross. And he did the same with AWA, picking off Ken Resnick, Bobby Heenan, Ken Patera, Jesse Ventura, Hulk Hogan, for that matter. And
Bill, what were the rumors going around when you were wrestling and you hear about Junior taking over the company? Were you guys laughing when you heard about him trying to make this expansion, or were you a believer?
Uh, well, I looked at it different because you see, we in '83 when Vince expanded, obviously there was no internet. It goes without saying. So the boys themselves didn't in LA where I was living didn't spread a lot of rumors. They were just thankful that another promotion was coming in to give them some work, not for everybody, for a select few that Michael Bell and Jeff Walton chose. I, fortunately, was one that was chosen along with John Tolis, Gordman and Goliath, the Magnificent Zulu, Ron Pope, uh, Mickey Doyle, Rick Drayson, a few other guys that didn't mind being enhancement talent and working opening matches because you see, I did this for a living. So making $200 and $300 a night losing was much better than making $40 for Michael Bell and winning. And that's the way I looked at it from a perspective of making a living for my family. So it was a great thing for me, and I was wishing nothing but success. At the time, I wasn't thinking of all the end of territories because I didn't really understand all that then. Because again, without the internet, you didn't really understand what was happening across the country at the time. You only saw what was happening in your area. So when Vince expanded, I looked at it like it was a good thing, as long as I was on the end of it. I mean, of course, and I was. Bill. I was introduced to Pat Patterson, and Pat liked me, and not in that way, gentlemen. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. I'm pointing at you guys, and not like that.
Wait a minute.
I was like, oh.
Okay. See, thanks, Bill. Honesty is the best policy. But Pat took a liking to me, and one night at the LA Sports Arena, they put me over Paul Orndorff before he became Mr. Wonderful. They put me over in front of 16,000 fans, and that was Pat's calling. This was in April of '84, I believe. April of '84, and and it was just some good things happened in those days.
So he puts you over Orndorff, but doesn't even try to take you out for ice cream. I don't know if I believe this story there, Bill.
Hey, I was a little insulted myself.
Wow. All right.
No, but in all honesty, years later, I look back and was like, hey, man, in those days, I was a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
I'm not now. I'm getting towards 70 years old. But in those days, in the 80s.
Yeah, wait a minute.
In the 80s, I did okay for myself.
Well, what's the problem here? Wow, this is getting strange here,
That's
Bill.
it. But
wait a minute. I got to bounce in here, Bill, because you are a good-looking guy. I could see the photos, right?
Oh, well,
What was it like? What was it like going from town to town? Did you have a woman in each town?
Oh, here we go.
Kinda. I did okay for myself.
Honesty's the best policy.
I love the 80s. Let's just say that. The 80s were very, very good to me. And the 70s weren't bad either.
Oh.
I did okay, and I long for those days. Believe me, brother, I long for those days because the 2000s have not been as kind to me as the 70s and the 80s.
You're not the only one, man. Don't worry about it. Jimmy, before you hit him with your question, I have this one thing. So when you're in California there, Bill, right, were you there during the young Piper Jabaruk years?
No. No. I was living in Chicago in the mid to late 70s when that was happening. And when Piper began working for Michael Bell in the mid 70s, I was living in Chicago at that point. After I left working in Tennessee in 75, I went to Chicago to live with my sister for a while. And that's where I was working for Dick the Bruiser and some independents out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and different places around that and even down to Arkansas, working some independents. Before I moved back to Phoenix, Arizona, which is where I live now, and then on to Los Angeles in '82, I had sent a letter to, excuse me, Tom Ernesto. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold. I sent a letter to Tom Ernesto. In those days, we didn't have VHS or anything else to do. So you sent an 8x10 picture and you said, please use me. And with your little list of your credentials.
Right.
And Tom Ernesto wrote me back. He said, Bill, I'd love to use you. I can give you a starting date. It was, I believe it was August 27th of '82. Come in and work the Olympic that Friday night, and then we got San Bernardino on Sundays, and we're running Las Vegas and we're running Fresno. Hey, that's what I looked like back in those days. And and I was a young, slim, trim guy. I was, about 210 pounds and 6'2", and everything went great, except the problem was when I got into LA, Tom kind of fibbed a little bit with me, and Las Vegas had one more show to do, and they flew us to Las Vegas to the showboat. I got to work with Cyclone Negro, great worker, and did a tape fist, brass knuckles match with Cyclone. Mil Moskris was on the show. Let's see. There was like one more Fresno. There was no more San Diego, no more Long Beach. It was only San Bernardino and LA, basically. So I started starving to death, and it wasn't Mike's fault. He was doing the best he could. He knew he was going to be selling out without telling the boys in a few months, which is what he did. So he kind of kept it secret that he was selling out to Vince. But what he did do, like I said earlier, he put me on the list of guys to use. And that was very important. And Pat Patterson, who was the main booker for Vince, took that very seriously, who Mike was recommending as good talent that would listen to what they were told to do and go out and perform in front of a big crowd of people and do a job and do it well. And I was thankful and honored to be among those guys. Can you imagine I'm in the same list as Gordman and Goliath? Mm-hmm. Hell, I'd been watching them, for many years, decades. Yeah. So I was a big fan of those guys. They became friends of mine, and I got to work with them, and I'm on the same list as them. So, and the same shows. And the main event in those days was Bob Backlund defending his title against Ivan Koloff or Playboy Buddy Rose. And those kind of guys. And there I am on the same show.
Fantastic.
So, it was a win-win for me. Plus, like I said, I was making money. And money to me was $200, $300, $400 a night.
Right.
That's big money in the 80s for an indie guy.
It's also a revelation to discover through your comments that working as talent enhancement can be more profitable than being a face someplace. So I find that fascinating too.
Yes. Let me tell you. I had a philosophy, and it's very, very simple. And I don't want to throw somebody under the table, but I'm going to. There was a gentleman here wrestling in LA as Timothy Flowers. Tim was a fairly well-known guy in the early 80s. Tim's philosophy, quite honestly, was I'd rather be the main event and win and make $20 than work the opening match, make $200 and lose. Well, I didn't come from rich parents. I was supporting myself. I had a couple of wives along the way, and I had a child in 1989, my son, Audie. And so I had mouths to feed and be responsible for. So, you know what? My ego is not as important as paying the electric bill or my new car payment and that sort of thing.
Right.
And I used to tell people, you want to know what's really strange in life? People always downgraded guys like Steve Lombardi, Brooklyn Brawler, for doing jobs and everything and never winning matches. let me tell you, that guy probably owned a mansion
Right.
wherever the hell he lived in
I'm
Connecticut
sure.
or New York. Owned a mansion and probably drove a Mercedes.
Probably.
Was doing quite well for himself.
No doubt.
And that's not winning matches. Who cares about winning matches? I
Right.
want to get the bookings, and that's it.
Show me the money.
I was being friends. I was making relationships and solid commitments to the promoter that I would show up and be there and do a good job, and being honest and performing to the top of my ability. And that's why Pat put me over Orndorff or put me over Ron Pope, the magnificent Zulu. His body made mine look like crap. I was just a skinny little kid compared to Ron Pope. He was not the greatest wrestler. We all know that, but he was a hell of a body.
Right.
6'5", 6'7", whatever the hell he was, 300 pounds of muscle. And Pat had no problem saying, "Bill, you're over Zulu tonight." And
Bill,
it was because he knew I was faithful to the business. I had a passion for the business, and they knew I was dedicated to the promotion, and I would go out and work my ass off.
As we're talking, I have to ask you, and Mike, forgive me, it's off script, but look, the territory days, a lot of the territories were kind of like interactive and cohesive with each other. So was working in LA almost like you were in your own bubble, even though it's a territory? Because it feels like on the map. How do I explain this? Like the Georgia, Carolina, these guys would go up and down. They'd make a left turn to Texas, but were you almost in a territorial bubble being in that special area where you were in LA during those days pre-internet?
Well, yes, and self-inflicted because I wanted to live in LA. I wasn't so much, even though the wrestling was my life and my business, I didn't want to travel all that much at different times. Depending on different situations of my life, I wanted to stay home. So I worked for whoever was around Los Angeles, whether it was Michael Bell. I worked for Indies even when I was working for Mike around Los Angeles, and I would work Tijuana. And this is another thing. Michael Bell was the promoter that turned me on and got me my first booking in Mexico, which started almost a whole nother phase of my career. El Psychedelico, the brother of Mil Mascaras, in 1982 was promoting in Mexico in border towns south of San Diego. And Mike sent me down there to work for Psychedelico. And that opened the door for me to start wrestling in Mexico, which became another big thing for the next 18 years or so under different gimmicks that I chose to do. But getting back to what you're saying is I chose to stay around Los Angeles a lot at that time. I didn't like book myself out to go to Texas or other places. I didn't even try because if I was making a living where I was at, I was content. I wasn't glory hungry. If I was making enough money, I was making enough money.
Mike, there it is. That's like Tommy Rich. When we had Tommy Rich on, we wondered why he was not champion for more than 5 days. He wanted to stay in Atlanta. So there you go.
You didn't want to travel.
There you go. And I worked.
Right.
Let me tell you, Tommy's a hell of a guy. I broke into the business in '74 in Arizona, but my first year into the business, I went to Tennessee in '75. Like I said, and Tommy, wow, fire Rich. Let me say something about being fired up.
Oh boy.
Tommy Rich was down there in '75, and I worked with him quite a bit. In him and Tojo Yamamoto in '75, and Tommy was one hell of a worker. And thank God he's still alive and amongst us, and taking bookings and signing autographs and doing his thing. Really proud to know that he survived all this, and
he's still got a mullet too, which is the most amazing part, right?
That he does.
So, Bill, let me ask you this: you end up going to the WWE, so I'm sure at some point then you have to start traveling with them, or are you still staying in California?
No, what happened was I stayed in LA, and through a process of events, we'll jump ahead to like 87 or so. Lee Marshall, who was a great friend of mine and great ring announcer for the WWF at that time, did all the Southern California shows, Bakersfield, Fresno, Los Angeles, San Diego, blah, blah, many other towns, Long Beach, Anaheim. Well, he jumped ship and went to work for Vern for the AWA and ESPN tapings out of the Showboat Hotel in Las Vegas. And so one night I showed up at the LA Sports Arena as standby talent. And I always wore a suit and tried to look as nice and presentable. I didn't just show up in a pair of sweatpants, throw my bag in the corner and say, "Hey, boys, I'm here if you need somebody." I showed up as a gentleman and as a professional, and set my bag down and let the agent, Chief Jay Strongbow, Rene Goulet, Jack Lanza, Tony Gurria, whoever was the road agent, Jim Myers, whoever, I let them know I was there in case they needed somebody, in case somebody didn't show, blah, blah, blah. Well, that night in LA at the Sports Arena in front of about 12,000, 14,000 people, Lee Marshall didn't show. And Jay Strongbow walks up to me and he says, "Billy, I can't talk about Chief without imitating him." He says, "Billy, you ever do any ring announcing?" And I said, "Actually, Chief, I did in 1973 in Phoenix for Kurt Von Steiger, the guy that broke me in. I was just a skinny kid, and I used to do ring announcing." And he says, "Billy, you're going to go out there and do the ring announcing tonight. Just do the best you can." And I said, "Chief, there's 14,000 people out there. I used to do it in front of 300. And he says, "You just do the best you can, Billy, and just do the best. You're all I got." And so I went out there and did the ring announcing, came back, and Chief goes, "Billy, you got a job with us now. You're our new ring announcer in Los Angeles." He says, "I'm going to give you money. Go buy a tuxedo." And because I was just wearing a suit. And I went and bought a tuxedo. And from that point, from 87, let me say, 87 to about 94, I was the regular ring announcer on all the LA, San Diego, Bakersfield, sometimes to Phoenix, sometimes all the way to Seattle, Washington, several shows in Honolulu, in Denver. I was the ring announcer for a lot of those shows. So I supplemented my income with my wrestling on the indie circuit, with doing ring announcing for Vince, along with, during that time, working their TV tapings every 3 weeks for Vince, under a hood as the Black Knight or as the White Shadow, only because, again, Vince didn't want me to show my face, because the people would say, "Oh, that's the LA ring announcer." So that way I had to cover my face. And the only time that was screwed up was when clowns like Brian Knobs, the Nasty Boys, would unmask me in the corner to put his freaking dirty armpit up in my face. And I would tell him, even in the ring, I'd say, "Vince wants my face covered." And we're on TV tapings. And he's like, "Oh, I don't care." And that was Brian. And I think that was about the most accurate I could give Brian.
Well, could I assume that you won't be giving any money towards his GoFundMe? I'm assuming.
No. But in all seriousness, I mean, I do feel bad for the guy. I mean, I'm joking about what happens in the ring, but I mean, and nowadays, I mean, because I've been there and done that. As far as the GoFundMe, I understand it. So I mean, I'm not laughing at Brian like in that respect, but because I know he's in bad health and things like that. But I'm just saying, when he was healthy, he was a pretty big, arrogant guy, and so that was just the way it was. But I don't know. I got off on this tangent here.
Well, let me ask you this: how much did a ring announcer make for the WWE?
I was making about I was making about 400 a night.
Shit, man.
And
Damn.
and certainly not complaining. I wasn't abusing my body,
You
although I
better
was
not
out there
be.
abusing my lungs every night. And
And you were
but
still getting laid as the ring announcer, right?
oh yeah, Let me
This is
tell you,
insane.
brother,
What?
makes no
Ring,
difference.
ring that
I
bell,
had.
huh?
Let me tell you, you heard of the group, the AWF? It
No.
was Paul Alperstein out of
Oh,
Chicago.
Okay, yes.
The American Wrestling Federation. This was in the mid '90s. I was doing the ring announcing for his group. They did tapings in Chicago and TV tapings in Tampa. And he was using Tito Santana was his booker, and he was using like Brian Blair, Terry Taylor was a commentator with Mick Karch. They were using like the Warlord. Tommy Rich was working for him. Buddy Roberts, all kinds of different guys. All the stars that were not with WCW and with Vince were working for Paul Alperstein in '85 and '86. Well, I became the ring announcer for that group, and it never failed me. Out of all that talent on those shows, that I would have women come up to me at the end of the show and say, "Where are you staying?" And it's like, "Are you kidding me? I'm the ring announcer." I had no ego. I mean, it was just like, you want me instead of. It's like you're watching a movie and you don't want Brad Pitt, you want the director or you want the cameraman. It's like, what do you want that guy for? You got the star right there. And I had girls.
Wait, Bill, because the cameraman gets you to Brad Pitt. Come on now. No?
Bill, did you ever like after you're done with one, then put on the white shadow mask and then come
Oh, for
back as the
God's
white
sake, here we
shadow?
go. No, it was the Black Knight.
No,
When he did
but
the
I can
Black
tell
Knight.
you, I can tell you some funny things. There was times where
Oh, boy.
girls only knew me under a mask from a show, and I'd invite them back to my hotel, and I'd open the door without my mask, and they never were like, "Oh, are you the same guy?" They were like, "Oh, okay,
Let's do it.
yeah," and it was like that, and it was like, that's kind of crazy. You didn't even ask if I was the same character under the mask out in the ring, and because I'm not gonna be wearing my mercenary mask in my hotel room. It's, no
Did you ever
need
get like
for
a
that.
request to put the mask on, Bill?
Oh, God.
No, not really. They were happy without it. They didn't want me to have anything interfere.
So in
it.
reality, you were Love Machine. Forget that Mexico stuff.
Forget Art Bar.
What is going on here? What was the atmosphere like in Mexico in the locker room, man? It's got to be some gritty stuff going on in there, no?
No, you know what? I don't have a lot of big crazy stories from Mexico. I spent a lot of time in Mexico. I mean, Mexico City, Guadalajara, every border town from Juarez all the way through to Ensenada, Mexicali, Tijuana, Nogales. I wrestled in every gin joint there was in Mexico. And I don't have a lot of wild stories or even actually a lot of women's stories, to be honest with you.
In Mexico?
In Mexico, you know what? I
The hell?
didn't drink, and I didn't go too overly get crazy. In the days where you could. Now I wouldn't even go down there now, to be honest with you. It's just a different life now in Mexico, with the drug cartels and all that crap.
Right.
But
Yeah.
in '86, when I was in Mexico City for a few weeks, I could walk the street at 3 a.m. with my bleach blonde hair and never fear anybody coming up and knifing me or kidnapping me or whatever. I just never had problems. It was a different type of violence back then, and a different type of environment. And I didn't have a lot of crazy stories. Most of my crazy stories are from Chicago or LA and places like that. And
Okay. When you were coming into WWE from the LA territory, like from what I've read, you worked or around like the Macho Mans and the Bret Harts and the Jake the Snakes. Did anybody test you coming in from LA?
No, honestly, no. The only time I had an incident was with Adrian Adonis,
Oh,
and that was
no.
strictly because he was drunk and high on cocaine. If it wasn't for that, and he hit me in the mouth, he first hit me in the crotch. I bent over in the middle of the ring. This is in San Diego at the sports arena. And as I bent over, he came up with an uppercut, caught me right under my nose, put 27 stitches on the inside and outside of my mouth. That was the only incident I ever had. I work with.
Well, Bill, if I can stop you there, Bill, if you
Yeah.
don't mind, if I could stop you there for a second, did Adrian apologize to you afterwards? And if we can explore just a little bit, Adrian, in general.
Right. No, he did not apologize. And not only that, to add insult to injury, this was in April of 83. So this was like a month after the expansion from March of 83 when Vince came out. Mike LaBelle was still acting kind of as a semi-road agent for Vince, with kind of overseeing his talent that he brought into the undercards, like Gordon and Goliath, me, and others, to let Pat Patterson know and others, what our skill level is, what this is, what that is, who we are. So they got to know us, and Mike would show up at the shows. Well, as I walked back through the curtain that night, I mean, I was gushing. I mean, I had a flow like a water hose coming out of my mouth and nose of blood. The first thing I did, I hit the curtain to the dressing room. Mike was there to meet me, Michael Bell, and he says, "What did you do to Keith?" He's sticking up for him. And I go, "Mike, what did I do to him? Look at my face." And he says, "You had to do something to piss him off." I says, "No," I said, "there's something wrong with him." And it was a while later. I was a bit naive, still in 83 to the business, about the guys drinking and doing drugs. As wise as I thought I was, street smart, I wasn't. I still was a kid at heart, and I thought the best of people. And I thought we all went in with the same philosophy of working. And I didn't understand the mentality of getting drunk every night and drugs and all that stuff. I wasn't into that.
Bill, I'm sorry, Bill, not to put you on the spot, but do you feel that Adrian Adonis was a bad person, and has this affected Adrian Adonis's not being in the WWE Hall of Fame, the way he was as a person?
Well, I can tell you, to jump ahead, and I'll get back to your question. To jump ahead, I forgave him for all his misgivings with me. I worked with him one more time, and he was even more drunk and even more drugged up, to the point where he actually snorted the top rope when he went into the ring, snorted it from one turnbuckle to the other in front of the fans. True story, LA Sports Arena. I forgave him for all of that, but I do believe he took advantage of me and took advantage of a lot of others, that obviously Dan Spivey rectified eventually, that I didn't even hear about until a couple of years ago, to be honest with you. I didn't even know that Dan Spivey story until a couple of years ago. And I think, unfortunately, I think Adrian was viewed as an asshole, to put it bluntly, if you don't mind me using that language.
Not at all.
I think that's the way he was viewed. I think he had a hell of a lot of talent and could have gone a lot farther. I can tell you this, one more thing involving Adrian. I saw him 6 months before he died up from his car accident in Canada. He was back in Bakersfield on a little couple-week visit, visiting his wife and kids. And I auditioned for a TV commercial in Hollywood, and Adrian was there too. He was straight as an arrow, and we talked for about 10 minutes. He told me he was straight as an arrow. He said, "I haven't done nothing. I stopped drinking. I haven't done any drugs." And he was confessional in all of that. And he says, "I'm going back to Vince this fall, and I'm trying to lose weight. And it's going to be a new Adrian Adonis." And then he went back up to Canada and ended up dying in that car accident. So I left him with a sad note of knowing that I in my mind he was cleaning up, and he was trying to come back as a good version of Adrian Adonis, and not the way a lot of people try to remember him, and and what he did to me and things like that.
Great story, Bill. Going to get a little serious with you. You know, you've been around Vern Gagne. You've been around all the great promoters. I'm going to ask you about Vince McMahon. You know, we all have heard the allegations all the way through. I think you've been around through the Ring Boy scandal, through the steroid scandal, through the Rita Charlton issues. Am I saying that right, Jimmy? Charlton, right?
Yeah, I got you.
Were you
Absolutely.
surprised, Bill, about these accusations against Vince McMahon? And I'm going to go a little deeper into this, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that first.
Yes, and I can tell you this, and I've said the same thing in any interview I've ever had, and it's the God honest truth. On my son's life, I tell you the truth. No bullshit. I have never, ever, ever seen anything with my eyes of Vince doing any of these accusations of that he's accused of. And let me go much further. The same with Terry Garvin, the same with Mel Phillips, and the same with Pat Patterson. Now, they were all friends of mine, but that doesn't, I'll call a spade, let me tell you. And like I said, Adrian was an asshole, or Brian Knobs was an asshole. I'll tell you if they were. I never had any problems with those guys. And I used to take a lot of guys to TV tapings. I mean, up to 16 guys for enhancement talent for TV tapings. And never did Pat or any of those guys, and Terry Garvin and Mel Phillips were always there, never did they hit up on any of my guys or me or anybody else. I could just tell you that is a fact.
Well, Bill, let me ask you this, though. Again, we just full disclosure, Jimmy and myself, we're big Vince McMahon guys. We're
Absolutely.
big supporters of him for what he's done for the industry and as a human being and as a businessman. But again, we're not on the inside like you. You did hear the rumors, though, about the Ring Boys, I imagine, at some point with the boys talking, right?
I did hear the rumors. But in my mind, to be very honest with you, unless I had proof in my mind of something substantiated with my own eyes, I didn't pay attention to a lot of the rumors because I was thinking, well, how come this is only happening on the East Coast and not happening on the West Coast? I was mainly on the West Coast, but none of this happened with any of my guys all through the entire length of the West Coast. So what are these guys only gay on the East Coast and not gay on the West Coast? Honestly, that's how stupid it became.
No, but that's a legitimate comment, Bill. I mean, seriously.
It was like, well, like I said, I'm joking about what I said earlier about me and Pat. Pat never hit up on me, and I'm telling you, in all honesty, I was a good-looking guy in those days, and it was like, okay, maybe he liked a different type of guy. We all like different types of women and all this.
Yeah.
Some people say a beautiful woman. They'll look at a woman and say, "Oh, she's beautiful." I might look at her and say, "Not my type." Maybe he looked at me and said, "Not my type." I don't know.
Bill, you seem a little hurt by that. Just got to share that with you.
Yeah.
Well, and years later, I was a little offended. I never got at least talked to.
Yeah, a little bit, right? a little challenge, right? Like, hey,
I would at least like to have said no.
Jeez.
Or at least a reach around or something.
Wow.
But hey, and let me tell you, I drank in bars with Pat. I never happened. Never any clue of it happening.
So,
Bill, thoughts
ahead,
on the people that leech or the assassination of the character.
Wait, I'm sorry, you're breaking
Mike,
up.
Mike, feel free if you want.
Jimmy, you got to repeat that. You broke up.
Yeah. Say it again, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. What do you think about the folks that are capitalizing? They have their own YouTube channels to capitalize on the character assassination of Vince McMahon and all these terrible things. And Mike, feel free to name drop if you want to. We know of a certain channel where they've been trying to destroy the reputation of the late Mel Phillips and Terry and Any thoughts on these people that basically just mooch off the "you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch, Vince McMahon," and make money off it to this day?
I I can only say that's just not my style, and I could never be a part of any of that. That's why I said to you a minute ago, in every interview, I don't care what kind of guys you guys are or anybody else. I'm going to say the same thing. You're not going to get me to badmouth guys that I have no reason to badmouth. Hey, let me tell you, if I saw Mel Phillips going down on some kid, I'd be the first to sit here and say, "My God, you should have seen what I saw." It's not the truth. I never, ever saw it, and never even saw him talking to different guys on my ring crew.
Well,
And I had guys that were
let me ask you
15
this
on.
though, Bill, and I guess hypothetical: if you did see something like that, would you have interfered?
Oh yeah,
Considering
I
you're
would.
being, you're employed and you need the money and everything else, which we totally understand. I'm trying to ask a hypothetical
I
possible.
would have gone as far as I could have gone. I would have done my diligence to acknowledge it to the right people. I think there's certain ways you can do it without putting your job at risk. Uh, Unless maybe, I mean, I'm not saying unless, I'm saying there are, I guess, circumstances where the guy could say, if you tell on me, you're fired. But I could just say that that never came up because it never happened.
Right.
Now, and I want to make it clear that might have happened 4,000 times on the East Coast, but it didn't happen on the West Coast. And we did shows every month for many, 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 many years. Mel Phillips would come out and be in charge of the souvenirs on one of my shows, or a show that I was doing the ring crew. I was head of the ring crew for years on the West Coast, doing LA, Bakersfield, Phoenix, Sacramento, blah, blah, all over the place. Sacramento, Oakland, San Francisco, Cal Palace, all kinds of places, San Jose. And Mel Phillips would pop out, fly in, handle the souvenirs. Never had any of my guys say, "Hey, man, this guy just said something weird to me."
Right.
I'm scared, Bill. Uh, Nobody ever approached me, none of my guys. And I had ring crew, I had young guys that I was training at my wrestling school, good looking guys, naive as hell, but not one of them ever approached me and said, "I just got hit on, brother, and I don't like it."
Jimmy, we're getting the answer right here. Well, let me ask you this, Bill. Then, when you see icons or former icons like superstar Billy Graham and Bruno Sammartino going on Phil Donahue and making accusations, are you second guessing yourself, or you're like, "Oh my God, these guys are as evil
Um,
as everybody else"?
I'm not second guessing Bruno. And I say this with all due respect. Billy Graham was my friend, a very close friend. I was at his funeral. He was a very close friend. Billy stated many times that he lied about what he saw. He told me that. He asked me many times to apologize directly to Pat Patterson, pull him aside at a TV taping, and apologize on his behalf for all the words said about he saw Pat do this or he saw Mel Phillips do that. He told me to apologize to Pat, and I tried to, and Pat didn't want any part of it because he was very offended. Uh, I don't know. I don't know everything Bruno saw. I don't know. Maybe he did see it, and maybe it's 100% true. Again, I can really, in all
Just on the
honesty,
East Coast, though, Bill. Just on the East Coast.
yeah, I can just say
Yeah,
that it.
strictly.
The guys behaved themselves when they headed west. When they got in the plane, they were straight as an arrow as they were heading west. I don't know. I don't know. And I heard all the
Being
rumors
close with
about
super.
Vince. Heard them all. It's not the Vince that I saw at all the TV tapings that I talked to. That was all business. I never saw him flirt with other women, the hair girl or the makeup girl or this girl or some chauffeur or something. I never saw it. Again, it's an East Coast thing. It must be.
Being close with Superstar, he asked you to apologize to Pat and then stuff like that. I know it's a very difficult thing, but did he ever entertain like coming out and saying, "Look, I might have said some wrong things. I mean, some lives were actually ruined from this stuff. You know, from what we've had on with a lot of guests. Mel Phillips had a pretty sad ending. You know, uh, any thoughts on those people that kind of like took part and look? Nothing was proven at the end of the day. Mike and I have explored this Ring Boy scandal deeply. We've had many guests on, and at the end of the day, all we've ever come up with, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, is a little toe fondling request and a kid sleeping in a cold van to stay away from him. That's all we've gotten. So, I mean, any thoughts on the fact that, you know, maybe Superstar Billy should have come out and said, hey, you know, maybe I should backtrack. Lives are being ruined here. Maybe.
Well, he went to Bill and asked Bill to apologize for him.
Yeah,
And,
well, I agree. I mean, I think Billy should have done some
I mean, on a public
podcasts and
level.
interviews and publicly made it more known that he was apologizing instead of telling me.
All right.
But I can tell you the honest to God truth. That's what he did. We would have lunch once a week for years at our favorite Mexican restaurant in Phoenix, and we'd spend 3-4 hours having lunch and talking the business, talking about history, movies, politics, blah blah blah. And every now and then, Pat's subject would come up, or the Ring Boy scandal would come up, and that kind of thing. And Billy would always say, please, brother, when are you going to see Pat again? And I'd say, well, excuse me. I'd say, you know, I'm going to see Pat at Cauliflower Alley Club in Las Vegas coming up next month. And he says, can you pull Pat aside, just you and him, nobody's eyes, ears around, and apologize for me as his old friend and tag team partner, apologize? And I'd say, I certainly will, and tried many times. And Pat was, don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it. Because like you said, Pat's reputation was hurt a lot by that, by a name of prominence, like Superstar Billy Graham saying those things. You know, it was just wrong. You know, and Billy did the same thing with, you know, a lot of other subjects too, you know. He was
an angry man, right, Bill?
Unfortunately, yes, he was friends with Abdullah the Butcher for countless years. He even told me when they were working for Stu Hart together in the 70s, Butcher helped buy him a car once. Billy blew his engine up. Butcher volunteered to help get him a car, or gave him a used car, something to that effect. And then when a certain podcaster had a lawsuit against Abdullah the Butcher, Billy took that person's side and said, Butcher's a this and a that and a no good this, and forgot about his friendship with Butcher and what he did for him, the favors he did. And I don't like that, you know, personally. I remember people that did me favors. As an example, just to change the subject real briefly, Superstar Bill Dundee in '75, he loaned Chris Colt and Mike Boyette and I a car when Chris blew his engine up. And Bill had a brand new Cadillac, but he had an old used car. He gave it to us. He's not giving us, he loaned it to us and said, here, guys, the rest of your tour down here south, you can use my car. That way you can make all your shots. And that's what a friend does. And you know what? Even more what a friend does is here I am 50 years later talking about it. And I remember what he did in 1975. And I speak honestly about it. Bill Dundee helped us. And that's the truth. And that's what you do when you have the truth to say, you speak it. There's no need to speak lies.
That's a measure of a man there, Mr. Anderson, that's for sure. And by the way, in case anyone doesn't know, which they do know, he's speaking about Hannibal from Hannibal TV, who accused Abdullah the Butcher of getting him hepatitis C, which he was given medicine for, and now he's recovered, and Superstar Graham went that way. Did you ever try to talk to Superstar about Hannibal and say, hey, look, you're making a mistake here. Abdullah's done a lot for you, and you're listening to some nobody?
Oh, yeah. We talked about things like that quite a bit during our luncheons and everything. And let me tell you, I've done Hannibal's show, I don't know, half dozen times through the years.
Isn't he a great interview though, Bill? He's really good.
He's got connections. He's first class in what he does.
I'm falling asleep.
I'm being facetious, Bill. Okay, thank you. I'm being facetious.
But he's got all the names. Obviously, like you. Hey, I just saw your Marty Jannetty. You guys interview top class guys, and I'm not talking about me. Talking about others.
We're talking about you.
You interview some top class guys, and Hannibal does too. I just, it's not my direction I would do if I had a podcast. I don't look for the bad in everybody, is what I'm saying. I look for the good in what they've done, and I don't look for the controversy. Let me give you an example. I was there the night David Schultz in LA tried to pick a fight with Mr. T.
All right, I got to stop you there. Please tell this story because a lot of people don't know this and correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, I'm just a fan, and I just want to lead you into this. A lot of people believe that Vince McMahon fired David Schultz because of the slap for John Stossel, but I heard differently. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
My belief, and I was there the night Mr. T showed up to kind of do more promos for WrestleMania coming up. And I was in the back area. I don't even know who was out at the ring, who was in the ring, I should say, at the time. I think Hogan was, or Ted DiBiase or somebody. Not maybe Ted. Somebody else. It doesn't even matter. I was in the dressing room when David Schultz was back there, and Chief Jay Strongbow was the road agent. And Chief, I heard him tell the police that were stationed back there as security, go get him. And Schultz went through the curtain toward the ring, and Chief yelled, go get him and bring him back. This is not an angle. Bring him back. Don't let him make contact with T. And Schultz went through and in front of the fans wanted to start a legit shoot fight with Mr. T. Because, Schultz was a bit, racist, perhaps. I don't know. But, or at the very least, he didn't like outsiders entering the business or being a part of the business like Mr. T was and being promoted so strongly. So the police brought Schultz back, laid him on his belly because he was fighting. He was like, just like you see on TV, he was like all over the place with the cops, 2 cops. And they put him on his belly and they ended up hog-tying him. They handcuffed him, put his feet back behind his legs and tied it together and had him hog-tied on his belly. And out of the dressing room pops, I could be wrong on this part. It's a little hazy because my focus was down on the ground. It was either Davey Boy Smith or Jim Neidhart or both came out to defend Schultz. And actually, they were going to start a fight with the cops. And Chief was like, whoa, back up, guys, back up. And he kind of verbally, did this, pushed him back. And the cops stayed there with Schultz for about 15, 20 minutes, got him to calm down. And what happened was they finally unleashed him, I should say, and let him stand up. And Chief says, you are to go to the airport. There was an exit door of the arena, LA Sports Arena, right by the dressing rooms. He says, you are to go straight to the airport. Do not try to come back in the building. Do not come back at all to this building tonight. And they stood him up, unhandcuffed him, walked him arm in arm to the door, pushed him through the door, and that was the last anybody saw of David Schultz, as far as I know. This was after the John Stossel thing, I believe. I'm almost positive. I don't know the timeline. I could look it up online to be real accurate, but I don't know.
No, it was definitely after.
That's the way I remember it.
Yep.
I was there, witnessed it with these 2 eyes. And again, I was there that night. as a standby wrestler, which is why I was even back by the dressing room. I was just there in a suit, waiting to see if somebody didn't show up or if they needed a guy to carry somebody back and make a payday or whatever it was. I let Chief know I'm available. So I was there to witness. And I told Hannibal this story, and he told Schultz this story. But Schultz's version is that the cops had machine guns on them or some kind of weaponry like that. They were holding machine guns on him and exited him out the door. And I says, that just doesn't make sense. First of all, why would these security guys in 85 be carrying machine guns at a sporting event? There was no terrorism. There was none of this happening. They're not in Jerusalem. I mean, my God, they're at Los Angeles at the sports arena. The fans are only 30 feet away in the bleachers. They're not going to be carrying machine guns. I said, they didn't even have their guns out. It was a little more peaceful than that, although he was very upset. Schultz was pretty pissed off.
Mike,
do you think he was trying to get himself in the main event, Bill?
Well, I think he was definitely upset, and maybe he was figuring this is a way to do it, perhaps. Excuse me. It could have been a way for him to, in his mind, to look at it like this maybe will jumpstart something, or maybe, maybe I'll get a feud with Mr. T and I'll really kick his ass out there in the ring, or something like that. But that's not what Vince was looking for. This is part of the pay-per-view expansion. This is all part of this big thing. Vince had risked a lot going into this, with Cyndi Lauper and Moolah and Wendy Richter and all these people, Roddy Piper and Orndorff, all these parts of this program had to fit together. Bob Orton and all these guys and Hogan to make this work for WrestleMania. You can't have a redneck from Tennessee come in and screw it all up.
Yeah.
Which is basically what was happening.
There you go.
And that's as I see it and as I recall. And I was there.
Mike, I'm amazed.
And I spoke the same story on Hannibal's show as I'm speaking to you guys.
I'm amazed.
He didn't like it.
I'm amazed that this story, I'm sorry, Bill, I'm amazed that this story has not overshadowed the John Stossel thing, because if this happened after John Stossel, this is the reason why
there were no cameras. Yeah. Hey, look, there was no cameras. Maybe it was the odd time in my career I didn't have my camera. I wish I would have, believe me, brother. I wish I would have taken the picture of him hogtied. Oh my God! I wish I would have taken that picture.
Jimmy and Bill. That's Jimmy. You bring up an excellent point. Even in Dark Side of the Ring, they don't even talk about that, right? They just talk about the Stossel slap. I mean, this is, from what I understand, is what got him fired, because they could not trust him not to screw everything up. They just wanted him out, and I believe Hogan didn't like him either at some point, right? Even though they got along early on.
I'm sure that's what it was, but again, it was videotaped. You got a videotape, which is easier to prove and show your fans than a guy like me talking about it, which doesn't have credibility that it does with video. There's no denying. Nobody's going to say Schultz never slapped John Stossel.
Right.
When you could see him get his ears boxed both sides, pretty good. There's no doubting it.
So, Bill, you're not even just a great ring announcer, a great wrestler. You're also known for training some of the all-time greats, one being Jim Hellwig, the Ultimate Warrior. What was Hellwig like early on? And were you like, this guy is not making it? Or were you like, this guy's got the goods?
Well, also in that class of students was Sting. Steve Borden was a part of that, along with the Angel of Death, Dave Sheldon, and Strangler Steve DeSalvo were part of that group. And a couple more bodybuilders. There were 6 guys, 1985. Summer of 85, I was involved with Red Bastien training those guys. I didn't, in all honesty, at that time, I didn't see maybe all the potential. I can be honest, I did not see a couple years later Sting and Warrior both being the champions of WCW and WWF. I did not see that in my crystal ball of training. it was Red Bastien's school. I was just the main trainer because I was 29 years old. I was pretty damn healthy in those days. Good knees, good back, and I could work with these guys. And I let them really beat the hell out of me pretty good in training them and trying to have 6 big bodybuilders. And Sheldon, who was 6'7", having these guys body slam the hell out of me. It was pretty brutal on my body. But I didn't foresee that Hellwig was going to be the megastar he was. I got to know him and Steve a lot more as time went on. And let me tell you a story, too. A guy named Rick Bassman is the one that was financing Steve and Jim and 2 more guys, Garland Donahoe and Mark Miller. They were these 4 guys. And Rick was breaking them in as Power Team USA or something to that effect. Power Team. 4 big bodybuilders all wearing matching tights. And his dream was to take these guys, all 4, territory to territory, because we still somewhat had the territories in '85. It was just beginning to break up. We had still had Don Owen and Vern and Bill Watts in Tennessee and Eddie Graham in Florida. So Rick wanted these guys to go national. In my mind, as a veteran of just 11 years in the business, I didn't see that happening. I didn't see any territory taking 4 guys. And of course, as I do that, we can instantly think of the 4 horsemen. But I'm not just joking. But no territory was going to just accept, 4 bodybuilders come in. Well, what 4 is going to be laid off? A lot of territories couldn't afford to bring 4 in unless you got rid of 4. Well, what 4 were going to give up their spot? So Steve and Jim, there they are. Steve and Jim came to me in about September of '85, about midway through their training, and said, Bill, we sent some 8x10s, just the 2 of us, to Jerry Lawler in Tennessee. And we have a dream of maybe just breaking off from Rick Bassman and going down south and wrestling. What are your thoughts? We have that as an idea. Or the other thought is Red Bastien wants to sign us to like a 10-year contract and send us to Stu Hart in Calgary. And we met at Gold's Gym in Venice. And I remember it very vividly. Steve and Jim, we sat on a hood of a car and we were talking, and they said, what are your thoughts? And I said, well, 10 years ago, guys, 11 years ago, I worked for Jerry Lawler. It was Jerry Jarrett and Nick Goulas then. And I said, I had a lot of success, and you work every day. You need ring experience. You need workout experience too, but you need experience in front of a crowd. You need to put your holds to use and your moves to use in front of an audience to respond. You need that response to know what's working. And I said, I would go down to Tennessee. I said, your other choice, as you said, was to go to Calgary. Well, here we are in September. Who wants to go to Canada in September and endure the Canadian winter and that snow up there? I certainly would not want to. That's just me personally. And I said, I would go to Tennessee. It's better weather. You're going to work every night. Nothing against Stu Hart. He had a first-class promotion and first-class man. And I just said, I would do it that way, guys. And they listened to me, and they went down and became whatever their gimmick was, the Blade Runners or whatever it was with Lawler. And taking 2 guys in was a hell of a lot different than taking 4 in. So they broke off and ended up leaving our camp a little early and went down to Tennessee. And while we're on the subject of Jim, I want to always say, and I dispel the myth constantly. It doesn't do much good usually, but Jim Hellwig knew how to wrestle. He learned every headlock, takedown, arm drag, drop kick, body slam, top wrist lock, blah, 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 Beal Thoreau that Steve Borden, Sting learned. But the difference is Jim Hellwig's gimmick, he didn't need to do all that wrestling. Vince and Pat had a different idea for his gimmick. The gimmick did not need to be a wrestler, it needed to be a performer, a gimmick, running to the ring, the ropes, all of that stuff, the face paint, everything else. It was different than Sting going an hour with Ric Flair. And I try to tell people it was different. And obviously, Warrior loved that because he was a little stiffer in the ring and didn't have that flexibility to move quite like Steve Borden. Steve Borden would have been a professional athlete and a first-class athlete if he was a pro football player. He could have gone into pro basketball. He could have gone in, as far as I'm concerned, to any professional sport and been a star. Just like they promoted Kurt Hennig years later with Mr. Perfect. Steve Borden had that same athletic ability. Excuse me. Jim Hellwig was different. He was a little stiffer, and I don't mean punching wise. He was just bodily stiffer in the ring than Steve. But he learned all the holds just the same as Steve Borden did. He had a different gimmick. And you can't say, oh, he was the shits or he was this and that. He drew money. That's the name of the game in the business. Drawing money. You can be, you have to have the package, and he had the package to draw money.
All right, so settle this for me and the Pharaoh here, Bill. Who had the better career, Sting or the Ultimate Warrior?
Oh, my God. Less controversial for sure, Sting. It was different. And again, Sting earned the respect of people because he was working with Ric Flair and going hour Broadways with him or Lex Luger and this and that. Probably Sting. Warrior made a hell of a lot of money, but at what a cost? Because his reputation became really crap. He took a lot of negativity, maybe because of potatoing some guys, and he was green, and he was slower in a way learning the business, the mentality of the business than Sting was. Learning it's a work and learning how to work. And I know that's controversial for what I just said earlier, that, he was doing his gimmick. It's just a real tough call with Jim, because Jim had a different mental philosophy of always believe in yourself, always be a star and be number one, and don't lose, which was a tricky thing there. As I've stated earlier, goes back to that Timothy Flowers thing. Don't lose matches. Because if you lose matches, you're a loser. When everybody knows, and Red Bastien used to tell me all the time, I was a champion in every territory I ever went, and I did jobs in every territory I ever went. I lost to Mad Dog Vachon, I lost to Vern Gagne, and yet I was a champion everywhere I ever went.
And Pharaoh wins again. Pharaoh wins the challenge again. Bill, you let me down as I lose to Pharaoh yet again.
You thought I'd say Warrior?
I was hoping you'd say Warrior.
Bill, it's a tough call, because Warrior's career stopped at different points where Steve's kept going.
Right.
So,
Mike,
time-wise.
Bill, I'm sorry, Mike, if I can, real fast. I can obviously tell that you're fond of Warrior, and I can see why. What were your thoughts on his absolutely shocking death the day after getting in the Hall of Fame?
Well, and if you guys remember, and if you don't, go back and listen to it if you can. He mentioned me and Red Bastien on his Hall of Fame speech. He said, I used to watch Billy Anderson and Red Bastien watch us get our ass or our butts kicked during training and all this other stuff. Actually, it was the other way around, really, Jim. It was me getting my butt kicked by you, because I let them do all the spots on me. I thought it was one of the saddest things I've ever heard and seen in my life when he died. It was the most ironic situation I've ever seen. It was like Jim was at his own funeral, reading his own obituary and his own what do you call it? I don't know. But he was
Eulogy.
eulogy. I'm sorry.
No.
Thank you.
You're
Eulogy. He
welcome.
was reading his own eulogy for those
Yeah.
days, going to Raw, and even doing his Hall of Fame speech. He was just as
Yeah.
sure as I'm sitting here. He was reading his own eulogy without him even knowing it. He got to go backstage and apologize to Vince, and apologize to Hogan, and apologize to all the workers, DiBiase and everybody else. And some of them apologized back to him because they treated him like shit
Mm.
in the ring too. It was a very sad affair, and it was even sadder, of course, because he had a wife and kids. I knew his previous wife, Sherry, when he first came to LA in '85. I knew her when they were married, and I never met the newer wife. I was never around Jim during that time, but it was very sad, and I was extremely depressed for a long time. And I tell you, I do believe in. I don't know how to describe it. I believe in signs of the afterlife and things like that, ghosts and that kind of. I am a believer of that sort of thing. Tell you the strangest thing that ever happened. I was watching Monday Night Raw when Jim was on it that night, and in my bathroom medicine cabinet, of all things, it was just weird. A pill bottle I had of pain medication that I had not used for a long time. It was in case my back got bad. A pain bottle fell out of my medicine cabinet and spilled out all over my inside of my sink. It opened up and spilled the pills out in my sink while Jim was on TV.
Mm.
Nothing ever did that ever previously in my life, in my time of living there. Don't know how that even happened. The bottle was sitting back from the ledge in the cabinet. Yet there it is, falling out, spilling out, just as Jim's talking.
Wow.
And I thought, boy, is that strange. And it was the next day I heard Jim died. I don't know what that all means. I mean, I know he died of a heart attack. I don't know. I mean, obviously, he was 54 years old, I believe.
Yeah.
He had taken a lot of drugs, a lot of steroids in his life. I'm sure he had taken his share of pain pills and that sort of thing. I don't know. Maybe it was just the largest coincidence of my life that happened, but I'll never forget it happening.
Well, Bill, I want to come full circle and just say the first question I asked you is what your father had thought about you being a professional wrestler. And I just want to leave it with this. Considering the man we just spoke to and considering the history, I'm sure he's a 100% proud of the son that he raised. So God bless you. I want to thank you for joining Monte and the Pharaoh. And if you ever want to come back on, I think we could do plenty of more stuff with you. You are incredible.
Well, thank you guys so much. You're very honorable gentlemen. I would be happy to come on anytime. And let me tell you one thing. My dad always reminded me to be not Bill Anderson, the wrestler, but Bill Anderson, the human being and the real guy. My mom always told me, be whatever you want to be in life. I did choose my mom's version of being me versus my dad's. And I know they're both in heaven, and I know my mom is very proud of me, and I hope the hell my dad is. He always wanted me to be an electrician, and I didn't follow in his footsteps. But I don't know what exciting stories I'd have to tell as an electrician, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if you.
For some reason, Bill, the way you present, I think you would. I want to thank you again, sir, and God bless you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening.
All right. See you guys, everybody, 9 o'clock, the great Bill Anderson.